Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and where we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And in today's episode, the topic is, are people starting to lose faith in the Brooklyn Nets? So that's the topic I'm going to get into in today's video. But before we get into that, I want you guys to please make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Also, you make sure you check out Dreamerspro Max, an online sports community, a place that you can go and start basketball discussions, chat live during games, so many other cool things. So if you guys are interested in that, be sure to check that out. We have that linked in the description below. Get 7 days of access. Also, make sure you go ahead and click the join button to join the channel. Next to the subscribe button, ensure to receive loyalty badges from our channel. Also, to ensure whenever you leave a comment, whenever we go live, we respond to it. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. Anyway, let me get into the topic here. So it's been a while since we produced a Brooklyn Nets video, and I feel like the media is kind of cool. I feel like a lot of people have kind of cooled off on the Nets, right? Feels like maybe a month or so ago, 6 weeks or so, everyone was high on the Nets because, they were beating everybody. They were going around, just tearing up the league, right? And I think the reason for that, at least if we're talking about currently, is because of those two losses that they had against the Milwaukee Bucks, right? The Brooklyn Nets recently played a very good team in the Milwaukee Bucks in the Eastern Conference, and they lost 2 straight games to them. The first game that they lost to them, it was a show between Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis Antetokounmpo in that game scored 49 points. KD went for, I believe, 42 points. It was a very entertaining game, back and forth game. And to be quite fair to Giannis has really shown a lot of things, this season. In that game, he showed that, number one, he could stretch the floor. I saw him knocking down 3-pointers. I saw him getting to the mid-range and pulling up and hitting some mid-range jump shots. Now, although Giannis has a very, very slow release, he has a set shot, especially when he shoots that 3. But nevertheless, he was making a shot. The defenses were sagging off of him, and he was taking what the defense was giving him, and he was making some big shots. Then they turned around. I think a day later, they played the same team again, talking about the Brooklyn Nets, and then they lost to this team back to back, right? And because of those losses, if you look at the NBA standings right now in the Eastern Conference, they were able to pull closer to the Brooklyn Nets, but the Bucks still remain the number 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. The Brooklyn Nets remain the number 2 seed in the Philadelphia 76ers. They remain the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference standings. But because of those 2 losses, people started to look at the Brooklyn Nets kind of sideways after that. They were like, what's going on? But also, you got to give kudos to the Bucks, because they showed that, one, they could score with the Nets. That's one of the things that I've been saying about this Brooklyn Nets team, is once they have their big 3 and they're clicking and they're firing on all cylinders, they're going to be pretty tough to beat, and you got to score with them, right? If you can't score with them, good luck stopping them, because their offense is too potent. Chris Middleton showed me some things that he could definitely be a scoring option. Drew Holiday was able to make some big time defensive plays at the end of that game. So the Bucks showed that they can be a very good champion. They could be a good, let's say, title contender in the Eastern Conference, but just like, let's say Paul George, we're waiting to see what Giannis Antetokounmpo does in the playoffs, because he puts amazing numbers up in the regular season. We're waiting to see how is he going to perform once the playoffs comes around. Now, another reason that some people have kind of cooled off on the Nets is because of James Harden, right? James Harden has missed probably the last 10 to 12 or 15 games. Harden has not played a lot of these games, right? And I think they're a different team with James Harden out there, right? I think if they have Harden and any other combination of one of their other stars, talking about Kyrie or Kevin Durant, I think they're good to go. As far as good to go, meaning I think they can at least get to the Eastern Conference Finals. If it's Harden and Kyrie, or if it's Harden and Kevin Durant. I think if it's Kevin Durant and Kyrie, I'm not so sure. I think the two of them together, from what I understand, they have a 7-9 record. Or a 9-7 record. They're not very good together, these two guys, funny enough, which means that had the Brooklyn Nets not gotten James Harden, we may have it may be a different storyline about the Nets this season. It may turn out that Harden is really the difference maker on this team, because in my opinion, I think James Harden is what makes that engine churn. I think he's the key in the ignition that makes that entire thing work. He's leading the league in assists. If we look at James Harden's numbers this season, although he's missed a good amount of games, he's only played 42 games this season. In those 42 games, he's averaging he's played 34 games. He's played 42 games in total, but he's played 34 games with the Brooklyn Nets. So in those 34 games, He's playing with the Nets. He's scoring 25 points per game. He's shooting 46.7% from the field, 36% from the three-point line, 86.7% from the free throw line. He's getting you 8.7 rebounds, 11 assists. Okay, 11 assists per game and 1.3 steals. That 11 assists is a major reason. It's a major factor as far as judging the success of this Brooklyn Nets team. He sets the table for everyone. He's the one that makes that offense go. He facilitates that offense. Remember, he was the one that played under Mike D'Antoni, right? So he understands. I think the connection between him, Mike D'Antoni, and then also Steve Nash to a certain degree, because Steve Nash was coached by Mike D'Antoni. I think he's the extension of the coaches on the floor, and he's the one that really understands how to make that offense, really work and really function at a high level. Because I think he's a difference maker on that team. Now, when James Harden gets back, whenever that is, it may be 1 or 2 games before the season is over, or it may be in the playoffs. Whenever it is that he finally gets back on the court, I think he's going to make that team very, 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 very scary in the playoffs. Okay, because number one, they're still top 5 in scoring in the NBA. They still are number 1 in field goal percentage. They're still top 5. They're still top 5 in 3-point shooting percentage. They're up there as far as making threes and all of this stuff. So it's not like as if the Brooklyn Nets are a bad team. They're a very, very good team. They have some very good team stats, some individual team stats, collectively. I just think that because James Harden is not playing, I think a lot of people are beginning to cool down on this team. For me, once he's playing and they have their big three, to me, there's no offense like this in the NBA. They're the only team that can say with confidence that they have a combination of 3 players that are averaging at least, let me say that again, at least 75 points collectively. They're the only team that can have 3 players go out there and on any given night generate at least or generate up to 100 points in a game. KD can go for 50, and Kyrie and James Harden can get you 25. All 3 of those dudes can get you in a game where they can get you 30. I saw a game last season where Kawhi Leonard and Paul George both had 40-plus point games. I think Paul George had 44 and Kawhi Leonard had 40. That's 84 points between 2 players. So it's not a stretch to think like, oh, they really could. When those 3 guys are playing together, their offense is in another league. And that's one of the reasons why I said whoever they meet in the finals or whoever they meet in the conference finals, yes, defense is going to play a role, but you also have to be able to put the ball in the basket. And once you have James Harden, who can facilitate it the rate that he does, who can score at the rate that he does, who can get to the free throw line and put your team in foul trouble, it's going to be tough. You have to be perfect. I saw the Clippers play this team the first time they met. They played them perfectly. And in the last 2.5, 3 minutes, their big 3 got loose and boom, 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 game over. Kyrie comes down, hits a 3. Kevin Durant hits a jump shot. James Harden gets free, hits a 3. Game over. They're the only team in the NBA that does that, and they put pressure on opposing teams that have multiple stars to play well. You can't be one of those things like if it's the Lakers versus the Nets in the finals and AD has a good game and LeBron has an off game, they're going to lose. Because on the Nets, you can have one guy have an off game and you still got 2 guys. They're the only team that has that. So for me, I think the people are beginning to kind of overlook the team and cool down on them because they've been losing, but don't hold on to that sentiment for too long. Because once James Harden gets back, I think they're going to be better. So what I want to know from you guys is, do you think that the Brooklyn Nets are going to be just fine when James Harden comes back, or do you think, listen, this team has issues anyway, especially on the defensive side of the floor, and you don't think they're going to be good enough? Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Again, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified whenever we drop our content. Once again, this is Charles here from Dreamers Pro, wishing you guys an amazing day. Catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.